Howdy-ho, H2Os, Roller Bros, and Mayo Cats alike. We've got some r/tales from retail to look at today, but all of these stories come from people like you that submit stories to qsubs@gmail.com. QUESUBS@gmail.com is where you can submit your own stories. Just let me know the topic of what you're talking about and if you'd like a shout out or to remain anonymous. Now let's get into these juicy stories. Alright, I really like the setting of this story, but not the interaction with the customer. Hi Q, I wanted to share a story with you about my time in retail. This was the early 2000s and I was fresh out of high school. I worked at a major media chain store, CDs, movies, video games. I was a full-time key holder employee. Also, for more context, this was in a major mall, and I apologize if this is long-winded, but there's a lot of context here. It was a typical Sunday, it was a late afternoon, early evening, and we were starting to get busy. It was also right before the holiday season. As some can imagine, when you work in a store that sells media and you're located in a mall, you get a lot of parents who just drop their kids off at the store and treat the employees as some sort of free babysitting service. This wasn't uncommon, and we normally let it slide, much to our annoyance, so long as the kids weren't causing problems. Well, that was until one evening. Two boys, probably around age 10, were goofing off in the store, making a huge mess, running up and down the aisles, screaming, and just being obnoxious. Nothing out of the ordinary, so we left them alone. About 20 minutes after they entered the store, they got really quiet, and one of my coworkers, we'll call him Mike, started to keep an eye on them while keeping his distance. To give more context to the situation, we only had 2 registers, a long line of people, and about 5 employees working at the time. So 2 of us were on the registers, me being one of them, and 3 employees were out on the floor helping customers or cleaning up. Mike was not on a register. While I'm ringing up a customer, I hear Mike yell, "Get that out of your jacket!" I look over and I see Mike confronting these 2 kids who were both wearing winter coats. It was November after all. The one kid starts arguing with Mike while the other remains quiet. I excuse myself from the register to see what was going on. I had all the responsibilities of a manager without actually having the title of manager at the time, so I was the highest in the food chain available, as there was no actual manager on duty at the time. I ask Mike what the problem is, and he informs me that he just witnessed one of the kids, the quiet one, putting a CD box set underneath his jacket. It was some kind of 10-disc CD box set for one of the GTA soundtrack, and it retailed for $90. I ask the kids if this was true, and the talkative one says no, while the quiet one looks away. I pretty much figured out exactly what was going on and told the quiet kid to empty his jacket. He did without a fuss, and the talkative one protested the entire time. I proceeded to ask if their parents were around. They said no, and being that I was busy and the store was swamped, I made the executive decision to call mall security and let them deal with finding the kids' parents. I overheard a page asking the mother to come down to the office to retrieve the kids. Now, before I continue, I have to give a little bit more context here, as well as a warning. Mike is a wonderful human being who was originally born in the Middle East, and he and his family immigrated to the United States when he was 5. He still maintained a pretty thick accent and was overall a pretty chill dude, and very much American. Trigger warning, racism. Fast forward another half an hour and I see an angry mother walk in with the 2 kids in tow. She starts screaming at the top of her lungs to speak to a manager immediately because some terrorist assaulted my sons. Can I help you with something, ma'am? Yeah, you can point out the terrorist who assaulted my sons. No one here assaulted your sons, ma'am, I assure you. Liar! Someone in this store hurt my boys! A terrorist! That was when Mike came over to try to defuse the situation and attempt to calmly explain to this lunatic what actually happened, because that's just Mike. He has a much longer fuse than I, and I was already losing my patience with this racist piece of garbage. This was 2004, and hysteria over Middle Easterns was still sky high. Mike, these boys weren't assaulted. I caught them trying to steal something and I told them to put it back. My boys would never steal. They were just hiding it so no one bought it. They wanted me to look at it when it came back. He hid it under his jacket. You're a lying terrorist. No one will believe you. Insert rant about 9/11 terrorists and how Mike allegedly assaulted her kids and other stupid details I don't remember. Me cutting her off. That's enough. You don't get to speak to my employees that way. Your boys attempted to steal something. They were caught. stopped. They were escorted out by mall security. You're lucky we didn't call the police on them or CPS for you neglecting your underage children in a store. How dare you! I didn't neglect them. I left them under your supervision. Ma'am, I'm not a babysitter. I don't even like children. Now, if you don't leave my store in the next 30 seconds, I really will call the police on you for creating a disturbance, and I'll report your children for attempted theft. She huffed and puffed a little, but eventually left. I apologized to Mike for her behavior, and he gave me a pat on the back saying it's alright. Mike was just a cool dude. 1 week later, regional manager shows up. Racist piece of garbage mother called the corporate office and complained. Regional manager informs us all that she received a $50 gift card for her trouble, and if she showed up to use that gift card to treat her like a VIP. He then publicly embarrassed Mike by threatening his job if he acts so cavalier with a customer ever again. Yes, he used the word cavalier. What a douche. I was absolutely disgusted by this and only stayed for a couple more months. Mike ended up quitting. He said that he could make more money selling pot and that his parents were loaded, so he didn't really need that job anyway. I honestly can't blame him. From then on, I figured since corporate didn't want to hold customers to the same standard as us employees, whenever a CD or video game came in that I knew someone wanted, I'd just disable the security tag on it and put it in their lockers. I myself probably quadrupled my personal video game collection. Oh, and when we caught a customer stealing, we just let them go. After all, corporate will just give them gift cards for the trouble of getting caught. This is just absolutely disgusting. I mean, first off, the racist woman, like, even if it's September 12th, 2001, like, don't treat somebody like that just because they're brown. I think that she went so hard in that direction because, like, obviously, my personal theory is that she was actually instructing these kids to steal, because I think even if the kids were stealing things for themselves, like, a kid would want an actual copy of GTA, not a $90 10 CD box set of the soundtrack. Like, what kid cares about a soundtrack? Like, I think the mom was just like, look for the biggest number on some sort of item and just put that inside of your jacket. That's what I think was happening. Also, I just hate when corporations have no backbone and won't stand up for their employees like this. This is terrible. So boy, do I have a story for you about a time that I dealt with an entitled parent and an entitled customer all in one. Now, don't go running away because you think this is a typical entitled parent story. It isn't. It's pretty different than the usual thing. Last year, I was working at a frozen yogurt shop by my house and had been there for close to a year and a half when this happened. So most of our customers knew me and I knew them since we relied more on our regulars than we did on our one-off customers. Now, I loved this job to death and most of my customers were great as well, often making small talk and being genuinely interested in my life outside of work and asking how my schooling was going. This story is not about these kind of customers, however. Now, when it came to this job, there were days that my coworkers and I would jokingly refer to as $20 days, where it seemed the customers that came in would only pay for their orders with $20 bills, even if the order was only a $2.50 small cone. These days were kind of common on the weekends and just after people's paydays, and when they happened on Sundays, it was absolute hell, since the two banks in the shopping center were closed, which forced my coworkers and I to have to use a couple of the stores that were a couple doors down. Now, the thing about this shop was that only one of us worked during a shift, so if we had to get change, then we'd have to fully lock up the shop, go get change, and then unlock it again if we were going to get change. We couldn't have the customers still in the shop for obvious reasons, and if someone was to come to the door when we were locking up, we were supposed to tell them where we were going and that we'd be back in 5 minutes. So now for the incident in question. I ended up getting called in for a double on Sunday, which meant that I was working from when we opened at noon until 9:30 at night when we closed, and then however long it took me to totally shut down. The day was pretty normal, though about midday through my shift, it turned into one of those $20 days, and I started running really low on change. Once I dealt with the last customer in line and it was starting to get dark, I pulled out a few of the 20s, the sign for the door, and my keys. I walked to the door and hung up the sign to say that I was getting change and that I'd be right back. While I was doing so, I saw a car pull up, though I initially thought it was for the Starbucks next door. For the sake of simplicity, I'll call the woman EM, though to be fair, I never did see her kids, but since she was a regular, I knew that she had 2 young kids, and myself, me. EM shouts towards me, "Excuse me! Hey! Excuse me!" Realizes she's talking to me and turns to face the car after locking the door. "Yes, ma'am, how can I help you? Are you guys closing up already?" "No, ma'am, we're not. I'm just..." Cuts me off, still sitting in her car, by the way. "So then why are you locking the door? I told my kids that they could get the yogurt tonight." "I'm just running over to the store right here so I can get some change since we're almost out. I shouldn't be too long, maybe 4 or 5 minutes at most." Frowns, but I can already tell she's getting pissed. Well, you can't just unlock the door, serve us, and then get change? We've driven through quite a bit of traffic to get here. I'm sorry, but I can't. I don't have enough in the register to give you exact change, and if I don't do that, then I could lose my job if the till is wrong at the end of the night. Like I said, I won't be long, I promise. She's getting even more upset now. That's BS, just let us in so we can get some yogurt. Me still remaining polite despite the fact that I could have been gone and back with the change in this time. Again, miss, I can't serve you if I can't give you exact change. Trying to find the middle ground. If you have a card, I can open the door and serve you though. Otherwise, I really need to get change since I just messaged my boss that I was going to be doing so. I don't have any cards, just cash. Now stop being so lazy and just open the door so we can get what we came for. I'm sorry, but as I've said already, I can't do that if I don't have exact change. Fully fed up, but remaining professional. Now, I'm going to take care of grabbing change and I'll be back in a few minutes with change and then I'll be happy to serve you. Pulls my key from the door and starts to walk off, almost able to feel EM flipping me off as I walk away. So I go and finally go and grab change, taking a couple minutes longer than planned since I had to wait for the store manager, but I got what I needed and pulled my key out again, fully ready to deal with the EM and her kids, only to find that their car was gone. I felt bad for her kids. I really did want them to have their treat, since they had mentioned having a hard test coming up the last time they were in the store, and I assumed that they were here since they'd done well. Now, if you think the mom leaving the shop was the end of it, well, you're wrong. I continued working through my shift that night, the rest of my customers being great and all. About 10 minutes until the shop was going to close, the store phone rings and I go and grab it and it's my boss, who we'll call B, on the other end. I'm thinking he's just calling to see how long the shift went for me. I answer the phone and this is the conversation that occurred. Hey boss, what's up? Hey, valued employee, just calling to check in. How was the shop tonight? It was alright, a little busy, but nothing I couldn't handle. Oh, great. So I was wondering if you could explain this review that went up tonight. I'm a little worried. Sure boss, what's going on? Well, this woman just left a review of the shop saying that you slammed the door in her face. Care to explain it? Me utterly speechless. What? What do you mean? What review? It just went up a few minutes ago, and this person is saying that you slammed the door in their face and refused to serve them. Still shocked and trying to deal with it. I'm sorry, but would you mind reading that review to me? I don't recall anything like that happening, but I'd like to know what's being said if I'm really in the wrong. Sure. My boss then starts to read this review to me, and the further he gets into it, the more I realize what it actually is. The story in the review that he was reading to me was submitted by the EM from earlier that twisted it to make me look terrible and like I was just refusing customer service. This woman was so freaking petty that she decided to get me in trouble with my boss and possibly get me fired because I had to run and get change for the shop. I stopped my boss about halfway through the review. I'm sorry, boss, but that's nothing but a bunch of lies. I know exactly which customer sent that in, and it's not at all what happened. Okay, so let's hear the other side. Proceeds to tell my boss about the issue running low on change and that this woman had demanded that I serve her even though I couldn't give her proper change back, and mentioning that I still offered to let her in before I went to get change if she had a card. Boss also asked me a few follow-up questions like where I got the change and which employee helped me there, all of which I answered with no problem every time he asked me. Me after telling him everything. Listen, boss, I know you haven't known me that long, but I would never treat a customer the way that it's depicted in that review. I know you wouldn't. Honestly, I didn't believe the review, but I knew that I wanted to call and get your side just to be sure. You're one of the best servers we have, and I know that you would have needed a good reason to turn customers away. Sorry for worrying you. I'll let you go and close up. Phew, thanks boss, have a good night, and thanks for calling about that. So yeah, that's the story. No real dramatic ending or anything, just a mother who tried to cause trouble because I wouldn't serve her when she wanted because I didn't want to get fired. I did see her a couple more times in the shop, but by the time she came back, it was such a mental blur that I didn't even realize who it was, and then the shop shut down a few months later, so I haven't seen her since. I hope she learned her lesson though, and that she realized I wasn't doing what I did on purpose. I just didn't want to lose a job that I loved. I appreciate this person's optimism, and I appreciate that the boss was, like, understanding of everything that happened, but I do have a feeling that this woman didn't learn her lesson, considering she didn't listen to anything that he said and thought he was just being lazy by not letting her into the store, and then had the pettiness to write that review. That's just ridiculous, and I just hate people like that. I just found this picture of GameStop, and holy heck, I love this entrance to a GameStop, maybe more than anything else in my entire life. But here's a couple bloopers. It was some kind of 10 dicks... EM shouts towards me, "Excuse me! Hey, excuse me!" So I'm going to be streaming some Amnesia: The Dark Descent tonight on Twitch. Very big thank you to Lustella, who donated the money for me to buy that game on stream a couple days ago. Thank you so much, Lustella. I'm excited. I've never played that game before. I'm super shook of what it will bring me and all the jump scares and tension and scariness. I'm actually thinking of putting together a jump scare compilation of me playing the game Black Rose, because I did get spooked a couple times, but it's just going to take me a little while to go through the 2-hour stream and find all the jump scary parts. So look out for that sort of thing on Q2. Let me know if you're interested in that sort of stuff in the future. But anyway, twitch.tv/YourQ, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be linked down in the description, alongside my social media links for Twitter and Instagram, and also my Amazon affiliate links for all of the equipment I use. And I will see you guys very soon. I hope you hang out, maybe a stream tonight if you're into horror games or into people being very, very scared. And yeah, skate on to the best of your abilities, make sure you're drinking more water, and have a great day.